I was reborn once more. I went back to the very day I met Swinjin. Her father hurled a check for $1 billion in my face. In my past life, I rejected the check in anger, but this time, I indeed accepted it without any hesitation, with a cold, calculating smile on my lips and a gaze that grew ever more distant from Swinjin. 10 years later, I lived like a ghost, quietly pursuing her shadow. At the end, at a business banquet, to protect her. A rival killed me in a cold, dark alley before dying. The last thing I saw was her merciless face, as if I were a meaningless stranger in that moment. This time, I don't want to be a scared dog anymore, until I have nothing left, not a shred. Then I stepped away calmly, with quiet, careful steps, and looked at the check. I swept forward with a bright, radiant smile. I even expressed a small amount of sincere gratitude. "Thank you, dear uncle." The voice wasn't very loud at all, but it thundered through that opulent, glittering banquet hall. From those very grand, opulent banquets. The word Swingen had prepared got stuck stubbornly in his throat. His expression of pride instantly transformed into sheer astonishment. Perhaps she had hoped that I would refuse in 100 different and creative, almost theatrical ways. But she never imagined that I would accept. With a warm, grateful smile, Samui's smile froze solidly beside theirs, almost touching, like a dog suddenly cornered. And Swinjin, that truly eternal and proudly icy dame who had never shown her emotions until now, for the first time, he let a single crack appear on his face, which was always expressionless. His eyes lowered slightly, as if weighed down by something unsaid. His lips parted ever so faintly, yet not a sound emerged. I folded the check carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Then I rose to my feet and moved toward them. "You can rest easy, uncle. From today onward, I will no longer trouble Su Ingen in any way. Dear Miss Su, I sincerely apologize for having bothered him over these past 3 years. Model, I am truly deeply sorry. I wish him a bright future and a smooth flight." Swingen's body shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. Finally, he looked at me for real at last. In those truly beautiful eyes, there was no longer any coldness. But there was a deep and unwavering distrust, clearly. Without waiting for him to speak, I pivoted on my heel and walked away in silence. "Sheenan, I assumed you had some grander, more intricate plan behind all this. It turns out that you're simply a brainless idiot, nothing more at all. Blinded by money and utterly foolish. You sold 10 years of feelings for $1 billion. What a shame indeed, truly." My steps paused. In my past life, those words would surely have made me lose control back then. With anger burning inside me, I would have charged straight into the fight, and his loyal bodyguards would have left me in a lamentable state. But this time, I simply turned around slowly to look at him, with no anger in my eyes. Only a faint rancor. "According to the young master, you must be joking. First, it is not 10 years, it is 13. Second, they aren't feelings. It was a wholly unilateral humiliation on my part. Third, this isn't selling a commodity. These 3 years, like a loyal dog as well, they demanded time and effort. This billion is neither too much nor too little. It is the fair value." I opened the door to the VIP room and walked away without looking back. Behind me, there remained a deep, sepulchral silence. As I stepped out of the hotel, the bright sun blinded my eyes that day. I grabbed a bank-issued check. Those numerical figures, they were so real that they could surely make anyone cry. To love with deep passion, to hate with deep passion. I have lived a dark life. This time, at last, I will not love anyone. I will love only money and nothing else. I did not go to the bank immediately today. An old fox like Susian, very likely I would pull something with the check. How could I cancel it, or simply hand me a valueless paper, waiting to see me act like a total fool? I took a taxi back to my little rented room there. To conclude, concrete painted black, in a cramped, sunless space of less than 10 square meters, with the air thick with the smell of cooking, instant and essential, that place where I endured for 3 long years, gnashing my teeth in my past life, just to stay near Suzango's school. I turned on my aging 5-year-old computer, and the stubborn screen seemed to take an eternity to boot up. Until the screen finally woke up, I did nothing in a hurry. I simply leaned back into the chair and began to ponder economics for a moment. When reborn, what is the best weapon? It is information, the economic trends for the coming decade. Which stocks will surge and which industries will grow? I know everything very clearly. I opened the stock exchange software, Indeed, and with exact precision, I observed. I typed the code. There is Faith Technology. I clearly remember that tomorrow, this small, almost insignificant company will publicly announce a patent for chip technology, which is going to drive its stock price up from 5 to 200 yuan. I picked up the phone and quickly and calmly called the Susango school. All of your things are currently at my house right now. I gathered everything up and left it at the door. You can have someone come and pick it up whenever you want. Also, I am changing my phone number, so you no longer need to contact me. Do not wait for any reply. I immediately turned it off, removed the SIM card. I broke it in half and threw it in the trash. The world finally went silent. Early the following morning, I headed straight for the bank. Not surprisingly, the transfer was completed without any problems. Then the phone notification displayed the new account number, together with the updated balance. Without any doubt at all, I transferred the full 990 million to my account. And from there, everything to Temface Technology. As I left the bank, I suddenly felt a strangely profound peace. The next step was simply to wait and see what happens. I didn't go back to that small, rented room. I headed to the center of the city. I rented a truly luxurious suite. I sank gently into the bathtub. I drank cold champagne and watched cityscape unfold slowly from the window. I was surprised. In my past life, I could only stay outside hotels like this, gazing at the lights on the upper floors, imagining the elite inside at some romantic party. Jim, the telephone began to ring loudly. It was a number that was previously unknown. It is I, Suswango, speaking. Shannon, where are you right now exactly? The things I gave you, you threw them all away indeed. It seems he went to great lengths to look up my new number. The things he gave me were only what he didn't want anymore. A sheet of paper and a notebook. Whenever he gave me these things, it was as if I were giving charity to a beggar. And I was utterly foolish, treating all of that as a treasure. I simply didn't answer. I simply blocked the number. Next, I phoned the Bola Hotel's room service line. Please schedule 2 professional massage sessions for me right away. In this life, I truly need to take good care of myself. During the entire week that followed, I lived the days I had always dreamed of. Every single day, I woke up naturally. I had a very delicious breakfast early at the hotel's rooftop restaurant. In the late afternoon, I went to the local gym or to the hotel pool. At night, I experienced Junkin's incredibly luxurious nightlife, and I threw away my inexpensive clothes and bought clothes that fit me very well. Clothes really make the man. That age-old phrase does not lie. Wearing a perfectly tailored suit with a Philip-like touch on the wrist, I walked into any luxury establishment and only received humble smiles and impeccably discreet service. Never more curious or contemptuous looks. Money is, without a doubt, the safest and most solid harbor a man can ever have, as much as Tempa and Technology's long-standing shares. I didn't even bother looking. That memorable night, I invited 2 absolutely gorgeous models to share a drink at Yunding Chingon, the private club, more explosive than Yung Kim. The music was deafening. The shadows were dancing eerily. The air was a thick mixture of the scent of money and hormones. In my long past life, I didn't even have the right to enter here. Now, I was sitting at the very best VIP table, receiving all kinds of curious looks. Sir, have another nice drink. The model beside me moved even closer, all insinuating. I smiled warmly and delicately touched her nose. Before I could say anything, I caught a brief, familiar glimpse of Svingen. What on earth was she doing here, at all then? Beside her stood Sunwee, flanked by Dad's little boys whom I hadn't yet known, for all to see. Sunwee laughed as she spoke, loudly and unrestrained, spitting droplets everywhere, without concern. Jasu Injin. Her face was as cold as ever, completely out of place amid all that uproar and ceaseless racket. Amid the surrounding noise and bustle, she also caught sight of me. The moment our eyes met, a clear look of surprise came to her face. Then came doubt, and after that, a growing sense of disgust. This disgust. In her eyes stood someone like me, someone who had taken his father's cash to squander it wherever he could. Probably not much different from trash in her view. Samui followed her gaze, watching intently as if pulled by some unseen cue, and shortly afterward, a broad, exaggerated grimace spread across his face. He carved a path through the crowd and came toward me. Well, if it isn't Shen An, the famous and utterly romantic Shen An. Saovi's voice rang out loudly on purpose, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. What on earth is this, exactly tonight? Did you take Uncle Sue's 10 million to come here and live the good life you brag about right now for all to see? Are you really feeling like you're on top of the world? Is that right still? The crowd that was chasing him also burst into loud laughter. Everyone mocked me, calling me a kiss ass. They said that I sold out for 10 million. A disgrace for men. The 2 models beside me looked terribly embarrassed. They tried to rise to their feet, but I held them back gently, standing between them and any attempt to move. I did so, signaling them to stay perfectly still. I lifted my glass and slowly spun it. The whiskey inside swirled. I didn't even bother to look at them. Here's to your good health. Young masters, you two, how long has it been? How is the family business going? I heard that some of the group's overseas projects seem to be having some problems. What utter nonsense you're talking. I simply took a small sip from my own drink. The port project in the Southeast Asian region was abandoned because of changes in local policy, right? And the chip agency in Europe wasn't taken over by Sanji's capital. Was it, really? These two businesses add up to at least 500 million in losses, doesn't it? All that information came from financial news I had read in my past life. The moment he heard it, Seovi's forehead instantly broke into a cold sweat. All of this was the company's internal secrets, beyond the board's knowledge. Basically, nobody knew. How on earth could that so-called failure know anything about this? Did you by any chance investigate me? I gently set the cold cup down and at last intently met his gaze, eye to eye. Young Master Sam, you think you're far, far too important indeed. You're not worthy yet, not by a long shot, truly. I stood upright, about a full head and a half taller than him, looking down at him from above, with a cold, calculating gaze, my eyes full of scorn and disdain. Worry about your own mess. Do not be like a snarling dog. All day you've bitten every person you see. The laughter around us slowly faded away. Everyone realized clearly that something was really wrong with the weather. Savui was intimidated by my presence. His mouth moved, but he couldn't utter a single word. His face turned red and then white, with a horrible appearance. I paid him no more attention at all. I pulled out a neat stack of banknotes from my wallet and carefully placed it on the table. All of you have worked incredibly hard, girls. Please go ahead and take a taxi home now. That being said, I straightened the collar of my suit and walked. Walking straight past Savui, and as I passed Sujin, I paused for a very brief moment. The surprise in her eyes was somehow even deeper than what I had seen in the VIP lounge. She could hardly understand how the poor, worn-out, and humble fellow from just a few days ago could suddenly become so completely different, so incisive. I offered her a smile that was truly full of meaning. Sujin, you really should truly have a clearer sense of judgment about the kind of people you meet. That said, I turned away and walked off, leaving behind my steadfast back and a large crowd, with mouths open in astonishment. It's not that you're unattainable, it's just that now I no longer bother looking up. When I left the nightclub, I didn't go back to the hotel. Instead, I headed straight away to Junction Airport. This place holds. There is too much suffering from my past life. Now that I have my own starting capital, it's time to go somewhere else and start a brand new life for myself today. The plane took off at dawn, bright and early today. The destination was Modu, a large international city where gold and countless opportunities are all around. On the plane, I turned off my cell phone. I settled back in the first-class seat and slept comfortably, feeling truly content. When I opened my eyes again, surprisingly, the plane had already landed at Udom International Airport. As I stepped away from the airport, breathing the dangerous air, I felt like a reborn warrior. I wasn't in a hurry to buy a house, but at Thompson Riviera, the most luxurious serviced apartment hotel, perched on the banks of the Apu River, I rented a spacious, light-filled apartment for a very long stay, standing before the panoramic window, with a 360-degree view that encompassed the truly magnificent nighttime panorama of the Bond. I knew this was indeed my own true stage. The next day, as soon as the stock market opened, I received a long-awaited phone call from my stockbroker. His voice trembled with overwhelming excitement. Lord Shen is rising. Even Infidixologio has reached the maximum altitude, I replied with quiet indifference. Okay, keep holding. Don't touch it until it reaches exactly 150. After turning it off, I began planning my next strategic move. Relying only on actions is quick, easy money soon. The base is not stable at all. I earnestly want to build my own business empire based on the memories of my past life. I knew that in the coming years, the internet, health, new energies, cars, and artificial intelligence would be the three clearly truly leading industries worldwide indeed. I spent an entire week drafting a detailed, thorough business plan. I wanted to establish a focused investment firm dedicated to funding these truly promising startups with real, substantial potential. A month later, exactly as I had predicted, Tempai Technologies' stock price skyrocketed wildly to 150 yuan. The funds in my account also surpassed the initial 9.9 million. eventually reaching a figure that even left me utterly breathless. 300 million. I did not hesitate to sell all the shares, thereby securing the profits. With this initial capital, Huang Xiao officially established his office in a locally situated setup on the very top floor of Lujiazui's global financial center. I began by actively recruiting exceptional talent, with salaries far above the sector's average. I hired the best analysts and traders from the major investment banks worldwide. In the beginning, these elites were somewhat skeptical of a young man barely over 20, like me, back then, at that early stage. But after I accurately predicted the American stock market's decline on 3 separate occasions and led them to adopt short positions, having earned $50 million in a single day, everyone's jaws dropped in amazement. The looks they gave me shifted from suspicion to reverence, and finally, to fervent worship and adoration. In their eyes, I was no longer the X, my superior. I was a god. My life, too, gradually grew more and more hurried. Every single day, there were interminable meetings, countless reports to read, and far too many people to get to know. Little by little, I forgot Jung, forgetting his keen insight and forgetting that terrible past. Until one day, my secretary handed me an official invitation. Next week, at the Exhibition Center 100, there will be an international business summit. This is an invitation from the organizing committee. I picked it up and looked at it casually. When my eyes passed over the list of organizers, my fingers paused for a moment. The Southern group, like a persistent ghost, helps me decline the invitation. The secretary appeared to be somewhat uneasy. The summit is of substantial size. Nearly half of the Fortune Global 500 corporations are expected to participate. Additionally, Mr. Lee from the organizing committee specifically requested your presence. Mr. Lee, the son of Hong Kong's richest man, who is also the organizer of this summit. Franzi attests, I had only seen this person in the news in my past life, and now he insists on meeting me? It seems that the reputational standing of the capital Huangchao has spread quite widely. Therefore, I intend to find out what the family's reaction will be when we meet again. Also, I have prepared a very large and meaningful gift for them. Exactly 1 week later, I boarded the plane to the conference site. As planned, and after I landed, I proceeded directly to the conference site. But unexpectedly, as soon as I stepped into the hall, Samui came right at me. What the hell on earth did you do? Under everyone's intensely curious gazes, Samui looked like a gambler who had lost everything. He suddenly grabbed the lapel of my suit. His breath was ragged and heavy. His hands trembled violently, uncontrollably. At that exact moment, he must have just received it. The news that the port project of the Song Group had been completely halted at last. Zana, what on earth did you possibly end up doing? I slowly lowered my gaze to your trembling hand. Half a month ago, he was still a young, arrogant master, really. But now, in my eyes, he was nothing more than a mere clown indeed. I wasn't angry at all. I simply felt truly calm, as someone who could see through it all. Young Master Cao, this suit is so incredibly expensive. You probably don't have any money left to buy another at all. I reached out and firmly grabbed his wrist, twisting it with a bit of force. He cried out in pain and let me go, pathetically. Calmly, I carefully adjusted my crumpled collar. That feeling of being in complete control is much better than the pathetic plea of my past life. Truly. Capital Ancayo. Where did you get the capital? By what means did you obtain it exactly? How did you come to learn about the ace up my family's sleeve? For that, you must thank the $10 million your father gave me. They allowed me to seize what I saw as the opportunity with Tenth and with technology. Samui stood utterly frozen in place, his face pale as chalk, eyes widening now. He would probably never have imagined that the money his father used to humiliate me would, in time, become the very first shovelful of dirt to bury the Sun family. At this very moment, Swenjin, dressed in a bright white suit, stepped out from the very middle of the bustling crowd. Her eyes were wide with utter astonishment, their glow bright as she stared around. Shinan, do you really have to be so cruel? I slowly turned my head to look at that face of hers, a face I had loved deeply for 10 long years. But now, there was not even the slightest flutter in my heart. Miss Su, business is war? When Sami was pressuring me back then, didn't you think him quite cruel at the time? Swenjin's lips moved for a brief moment, but she couldn't utter a single word. I deliberately ignored them, under everyone's fixed gaze. I walked toward the banquet hall. toward the VIP area that was more secluded. Stop barking like an angry, vicious dog. You are no longer worthy of being my rival. I walked up to Mr. Lee, the son of the wealthiest man in all of Hong Kong, and I toasted him softly in a hushed voice. Sun Wei collapsed to the floor. A low murmur around him seemed to swallow him like a rising tide. In the private hall, there was so much quiet that only the faint clinking of ice against the crystal glass could be heard. The gentleman was seated in front of me, his eyes full of admiration. Our conversation flowed extremely smoothly. The Guangzhou capital will cooperate fully with the group. I read in order to develop a new energy project. I knew that as soon as I took this step, I would truly be fully established. Mr. Again, the younger generations are indeed truly formidable. The family's own slice of cake is. You swallowed it perfectly. I simply followed the process. Sir, you never fail to surprise me, Mr. Lee. When I saw Mr. Lee leave, I was about to leave the hall. As the door opened once more, Su Yunjin stood there in the doorway. She no longer wore the cold expression that marked the banquet hall. In her eyes, there was weariness and a regret I had never seen in her before. Shen Yan, could we perhaps talk for a moment, if you would? It's nothing really, just a simple conversation. I sat back down on the sofa and slowly poured myself a glass of water. In my past life, if I had heard that tone of voice from her, I probably would have died of overwhelming emotion. But now, I just felt it was a plain waste of time. Miss Su, there's a very big multinational conference this afternoon. You have exactly 3 minutes, that's all. You've never addressed me this way. Those 10 million. My own father simply wanted to test you. He didn't think that would somehow make you want to go away at all. When I heard that, I almost couldn't help laughing. A test? Throw 10 million right in my face, would you? Seeing me escorted out by the stern security guards? Do you really call that a test? If you came here to say such nonsense, you can go away, Miss Su, please. Thank you for those 10 million. They made me realize that dignity, in truth, is far more valuable than love itself. Swenjin stood motionless right there, tears spilling from her eyes. I rose to my feet, retrieved my coat, and simply walked past her, without bothering to glance in her direction. As I passed by her side, I did not even turn my head to look at her. Miss Su, let us not speak of love any longer in the future. Between us, it is strictly business and nothing more. I left the hall and stepped outside. The sun that shone on me seemed extraordinarily hot indeed. I discovered that after some time, leaving this fixation behind, even the air felt cooler. On the third day back at the module, I received a call from Susang. Your voice no longer carried the same authority that it held 15 days ago, but rather a nearly unavoidable anxiety. I was sitting in my office. On the top floor of Ankao's capital, I gazed out at the view of the Dubum River and pressed the speakerphone button, paying it no mind. Zena, what the hell are you doing? You stole the Asson family's project, and now you have maliciously acquired the dispersed shares of the group. Uncle Su, you have taught me. In the business world, there exist only interests and agendas and motives. I believe Su Group's shares are a very valuable investment. Is there any problem at all? I heard the sound of glass shattering on the other side. Obviously, that Mr. Su wasn't just a little bit irritated at all. In my past life, he treated me like garbage, thinking I might never be able to get back on my feet. But now his life was in my hands. Do you want revenge? Do you intend to destroy the Su family because of Angie? You overestimate me. Revenge? For Miss Su, I am simply making a profitable business deal. I grabbed the phone immediately, added it to the blocked list, looked at the prices of the funds, rising and falling non-stop on the computer screen, and I felt a calm unlike any I've known. The Su Group, in these past years, seemed outwardly prosperous on the outside, but inside, it was complete chaos. Their internal controls were riddled with holes and gaps. All I needed was a single push, a minor nudge, and that sprawling empire would collapse. President Shen, Miss Su is down there, waiting below. She insists on seeing him now. I touched my pulse. Felipe on the wrist. The corners of my lips curved into a mocking smile. Half a month ago, I hadn't even had the right to cross the Su family's front door. Half a month later, the Su family's heiress has to wait, miserably outside my room. Let him wait. Let him wait until I have finished reading this lengthy report. I reached for my coffee cup and took a long sip. The bitter taste spread across my tongue, bringing me an almost unimaginable happiness. I really wish that Susango could understand. The kind of consequences that those 10 million she threw in my face back then would buy. 2 hours later, Swenjin finally stepped into my dimly lit room, looking pale and utterly exhausted. Her makeup, usually flawless, could not hide the dark circles beneath her very tired eyes. She was gripping a stiff, important folder tightly. The Su Group's final, desperate plea for help. "Shenyan, I beg you, please, stop this right now. My father's health is very seriously weakened. If the Su family crumbles, he can't bear it." I turned my chair and fixed my gaze on this woman just then. So distant, almost unattainable. In my past life, to protect her at any cost, I was killed in a dark alley. But she didn't even show up at my funeral back then. How her pleas strike me. So ironic right now. Miss Su, when you beg someone, you must adopt the attitude of the beggar today, right now. I can clearly see the restructuring agreement in your hand right now. I'm not at all interested, really. So, what is it that you want? In order to save the family, they will accept any condition. I stood up and began walking slowly toward her. She instinctively stepped back slightly. In her eyes, there was a gleam of fear. I pointed to the folder in her hand. I swiftly grabbed it and then threw it into the big shredder. I want 51% of the group's genuine controlling shares. Sui and Susanguo must publicly apologize to me directly. It's absolutely impossible. My father will never accept these conditions. I sat down behind the desk and carefully lit a cigarette. Through the smoke that slowly rose in spirals, my eyes grew cold and piercing. Then there is nothing more to say. Miss Su, before the market closes, tomorrow I will complete the final acquisition. Until then, the Su family will not only lose its company, but will also be overwhelmed by an enormous debt. Su Injin suddenly collapsed in the chair. Her spirit completely broke. She looked at me as if she were looking straight at a demon, but I knew she was only reclaiming the justice that rightfully belonged to me. Stand back and kindly permit me to proceed, please. Don't interfere with how I earn money, Miss Su. Su Injin staggered out of the office. I watched her move away, truly. The last vestige of pity in my heart vanished. It disappeared completely now. This game has only just begun. The whole family. Su is only the very first step of my empire. I was sitting there in the car, watching the debt collectors gather beneath the group's building. Su Shuanggu was presumably hiding in his private dim office right now, frantically dialing his supposed older brothers. In my past life, those people would beat their chests loudly at the dinner table, promising to take care of me again and again, no matter what, really. Back then, you were really in a lot of trouble. I granted you a hand to help you earn money. Now I'm asking you for the shares you hold, the ones you own, and you come at me with talk of market prices. I heard his roar through the earpiece, loud, and a very cold smile formed on my lips. The Su family still does not understand at all. Did you understand that in this very circle, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests? And I have already offered old Li 3 times the price. If President Su refuses to apologize, let this fire burn even more intensely. I picked up the telephone and informed my secretary to begin the second phase of this plan. Within less than 10 minutes, early news reports and widespread coverage about an alleged financial coup attributed to Grupo Sul appeared on the covers of all the major financial news sites. This was one of the great gifts I had prepared in advance. Each data point was a decisive, precise blow to the destiny of Grupo Sul and their fate. Impossible. Only someone with truly high-level internal access in the company might know these accounting books. Zina, how on earth did you manage that, honestly, anyway? I looked carefully at the windows, hermetically sealed on the very top floor of the aging concrete building, as if I could see the desperate expression on his son's face in my past life to help him hide those flaws. I worked long overtime, day after day and night after night, resorting to loans with high interest. In this life, these figures have now truly become your ticket to hell. Uncle Su, this is only just the beginning now. The stock prices plunged immediately, almost instantly, hitting the lower trading limit. The Su Group's market value evaporated by billions in just one single hour. I knew with a sinking heart that the family's last line of psychological defense had collapsed. In this dog-eat-dog world, I had no room left at all for negotiation. At dusk, a heavy rain fell steadily over Modu. I left the building holding an umbrella, and I immediately saw Su Yunjin standing in the rain. She didn't have an umbrella. She was completely drenched from head to toe. Her spinal column, once so proudly upright, now seemed a little bent. When she suddenly saw me appear, She moved forward at once, but my personal guard stopped her several steps away. Xena, I beg you most earnestly, please go see my dear father. He suffered a heart attack and is currently receiving treatment. He truly hopes to apologize to you in person. I paused beneath the umbrella, watching her through the heavy curtain of rain for a long, quiet moment. Right there, as the rain ran down her face, making it nearly impossible to tell whether those streams were tears or merely tiny drops. In my long past life. On a rainy night like this, I hurried across half the city to buy a diminutive piece of cake that she had mentioned. Casually, I found myself sprinting across half the city just to be greeted by nothing but her own words. It's far too sweet, and I wish I could cast it aside, for good, right away. A simple request for an apology. If that would make any difference at all, then why would there even be a police force? Miss Sue, please go back home. Stop putting on a show. You weren't like this before, ever. Before, your heart was heavy all day long. If I were to catch a mere ordinary cold, why, pray tell, are you so utterly insensitive now? Why Xena, who used to have his heart pressed by you, has he died yet? Within that shadowy, dark alley. In my own eyes, at this very moment, there is only winning or losing. I simply passed by her and steadily walked toward Val's Royce, parked on the curb. Su Yunjin followed me, completely desperate from behind. But my heart did not waver at all. In my eyes, that late love was far more real than mere trash. If you were to agree to indemnify the Su family, they would be ready and willing to do anything, including, if needed, marrying at all. Miss Su, your current value is not even close to what would be needed to serve as the receptionist of my capital, Ankayo, at all. The car door closed, completely blocking the wind, the rain and the crying outside relentlessly. I watched closely. As the white figure grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror, I poured myself a generous glass of red wine. In this round, the victory was entirely mine alone. Truly. The group's shareholders meeting. The Su family was marked. I pushed open the wooden door and stepped into the loud, bustling room. The meetings fell into a sudden, heavy silence. Instantly, I walked to the president's imposing chair at the center, a symbol of power and authority. That very place had long belonged to the Su family before. Now it was mine, completely. President Shen, as you can see, we signed the transaction and handed you the ownership shares. In the future, we will support you at the head of the Su group. Those old foxes switched sides faster than any page can turn in a book. Yesterday, they assisted Su Songgu in carrying out a conspiratorial plan. Today, they are hurrying to flatter a new president. I carefully reviewed the documents. In front of me, I observed all those present. From today, this place will no longer be called Grupo Su. It will be called Wankao Technology. All direct relatives of the entire family. Su must leave the premises in 1 hour. As soon as I finished saying these words, a tumult rose quickly from the corner of the room, from those initial meetings. Su Yubei, with a face flushed red with anger, suddenly exploded, clearly unable to accept this harsh, painful reality. Shen An, by what right do you expel me right now? This company belongs to my own family. You are simply a remarkably lucky bastard. Have you heard what I just said? Guards, advance now, please. The security guards moved forward very rapidly and dragged Su Yubei away. Get out now, as if you were a small, trembling little puppy. Your curses echoed loudly through the entire lobby, but no shareholder ever dared to say anything at all. I turned around and saw Swing standing there, sitting in the very last row with her head bowed low, her fists clenched tightly. Miss Su, in the old days, I would leave you a house. Take your father there. At least they won't have to live on the street. Swing slowly and deliberately raised his head. His eyes were as empty as those of a lifeless puppet. She rose to her feet and quickly left the meeting room without uttering a single word. I suddenly realized that the last vestige of her pride had been utterly destroyed by me today, as I stood on the rooftop. The entire nighttime view of the Wanpus River stretched out before my eyes, but I understood that it was nothing more than a mere stone, the angle of my vast, sprawling business empire. The real growing challenge was only just beginning. Brother Shen, you handled the delicate family matter quite well. Su spoke with outstanding clarity. More land for the chip project as planned. Lately, I fear they won't be easy to obtain. Mr. Li, did you hear anything at all? Mr. Li pointed to a table not far away. A woman sat there, with eyes as piercing as a drawn saber, unflinching in her gaze. She is Sem Roxy, that is, the sovereign ruler in charge of the artificial intelligence field for the coming decade. The Sem family is also keeping a close watch on this critical project. Sem Roxy, This woman nicknamed the notorious Red Witch. Her methods are far more ruthless than you could possibly imagine. Well, feeble rivals are absolutely no fun at all, as if my gaze could so easily be felt. Without Roxy, she calmly and gracefully turned and raised the cup toward me. Her smile carried a chilly air of scrutiny and provocation. In my past life, the family did not enter the market until 3 long years later. I didn't expect that. Due to my rebirth, the butterfly effect would have brought this formidable rival in front of me right now. Without Roxy, in my past life, when you ruled the business world, I remained the designated driver for Swingin'. In this life, I really want to see who is the true winner. I replied with a courteous, composed smile. Then I turned around and walked away. I really need to adjust my business plan. The rise of the Zen family is a variable indeed. But for me, it's a greater opportunity if I can absorb the family's territory. Zen in the south, my capital, Wanshao, will have no competition. After completing the agreement's formalities, something inside me urged me to turn around and drive back to the place where I had once lived in my past life. The place remained the same, still dark and damp, as it had always been. The air was thick with a heavy odor of cheap cigarettes and garbage. I saw someone I knew clearly struggling with a big cardboard box. It was Swingin'. You weren't expecting this, were you? I ended up in the place where you used to live, the place you used to call home. Is this the revenge you were hoping for? She leaned against the moldy wall of the edifice, holding a cheap package of instant noodles. The grande dame who used to never set foot in any restaurant that wasn't luxury. Now she has to haggle with the landlord for 100. And the rent-a-angel? I never once thought about getting revenge on you, ever. I only took back what was truly mine. As for your life, that is really none of my business, Xena. If I hadn't accepted that check, if you hadn't been reborn yet at all, would you have truly loved me for all of your life? When I heard that question, I was very surprised for a moment. Then I smiled very softly. In my distant past, that very question always tormented me. But at that moment, it seemed so simple, so utterly useless. There was no possible way. Yes, Miss Sue, people simply cannot live forever in the past. I pulled a thick wad of banknotes from my own pocket, and I placed it carefully beside the cash register. It wasn't a humiliation, but a definitive, final farewell. This is the final time I shall truly assist you. Do not show yourself in my presence ever again. I turned around and hurried toward the gleaming luxury car. Parked at the far end of the alley, Swinging's cry came from behind, echoing through the narrow alley. I immediately started the engine and drove toward the city's bright center, not looking back. Outside the windows that ran from floor to ceiling, the clouds hung heavily in a somber mood that pressed down on everything. Sam Rox sat there in front of me. She was not wearing her signature black suit, but rather a dark purple coat, which looked odd in dim light. She looked soft, but the aggression in her eyes hadn't diminished one bit, and there was a tense glint behind them. I lowered my head and fiddled with the tea set. Slowly, the water that was boiling was carefully poured into the teapot. The white steam was steadily rising. President Shen? I heard that, due to that very particular chip project, you crushed the entire family completely. Sue, President Zen, your news travels very quickly indeed. It's only a normal business negotiation. I wouldn't call that crushing at all. I served a cup of tea and gently slid it toward him. In my past life, Senhak would be utterly merciless for her coldness in the business world. She was an expert at exploiting information asymmetry to corner her opponents. It's a pity that today she is facing someone who already has a 10-year head start. The Zen family is truly determined to win that project. Please disclose your price and withdraw from the bidding right away now. President Sem, do you suppose I am lacking money? She paused briefly for a moment, clearly not anticipating that I would refuse so decisively right then. Did you happen to investigate me? In her file, I would probably still be the poor kid who would sell his dignity for a check amounting to 10 million. What she doesn't know is that my appetite right now is far greater than what she imagines. Zena, business is a long-term game. Offending the family? What good would that do for the capital? Ankayo, President, without me, I have a bad habit. The more they tell me not to touch something, the more I want to try. The atmosphere between us dropped immediately to the freezing point. Without Roxy, she didn't touch the teacup. She stood up, and her high heels made a firm sound as they hit the floor. When she reached the door, she paused for a moment and lifted her gaze. I sincerely hope your attitude stays steadfast until the auction. From next week onward, the door closed. I set the teacup down and slowly looked at Jair, clouds drifting slowly outside the window. The family's intervention is, without a doubt, a nuisance of considerable magnitude. But on my mental checklist, next week the family would face a crisis in the capital chain because of a failed overseas merger. That was, to my mind, my confidence indeed. The hospital corridor remained eerily very quiet. The air smelled strongly of disinfectant. I opened the door and saw the elderly Sue lying quietly on his hospital bed. He had an oxygen tube in his nose. In about half a month or so, he had lost a lot of weight. His hair had become completely white, utterly white. Sue Injin was sitting by the bed, slowly peeling an apple with her head bowed. What are you doing here? Do you really see us laughing right now? I don't have that much free time available at all. I came here today to tell President Sumadel something. She very slowly opened her sleepy, tired eyes. Her murky gaze fixed on me, and he slowly moved his lips. His voice was very hoarse, almost inaudible. I walked slowly to the bed and looked at that man who, one day, threw a check right there in my face. You have indeed won. The Sioux group no longer exists. What else do you want, really? I want the deeds of the ancients themselves, the lands of the Sioux family's own factory. In exchange, I will fully cover all of your medical expenses and arrange a job for you. Well suited for Su Ying, Sue's own apple. Ying fell to the floor and rolled all the way to my feet. She looked at me with eyes full of deep humiliation and lasting resentment. But, above all else, utter impotence. I knew the Sioux family would not refuse, ever. Oh, China, you really need to buy indeed. The very last piece of our dignity indeed. Dignity is earned. No one truly simply grants it to you. The President Sioux signed. His own blood signed the document at last. I took the document without giving them even a stray second glance. Those old factory lands lie beneath, a future subway line that government intends to transform into a main commercial district. In my former life, the Zulus family sold it to the family. That was because they simply did not know its true value. In this life, this tasty, succulent piece of meat is mine. Tomorrow, please kindly present yourself to the capital's Department of Human Resources. I want you to be my personal assistant. This is your last chance, the final warning you will receive. I have just left the hospital. Xinjin didn't follow me. I knew she would come because she really had no other option available to her. Xinjin, dressed in a dark gray suit, stood right there in front of my desk. She looked very intimidated, gripping a folder tightly in both hands. I did not look at her. I continued analyzing the bidding proposal in my hands. Assistant Sue, please, make 10 copies of this document for the record. 3 o'clock sharp, exactly. Go meet Simroxy with me now. The family's influence, yes indeed. In Jinshan, it is immeasurable. Do you really want to go head-to-head with her today? I dropped the pen and looked at her. Your eyes still showed a deep pride, but more than that, an acceptance of reality. You only need to execute. You don't need to ask questions. The mood in the auctions afternoon was very tense. Semrox was seated on the left with her team. Everyone wore a determined expression to win. I was seated on the right. Behind me, only Swingen continued to accompany me. When the auctioneer announced the start of bidding, Semrox placed an extraordinarily high bid. President Shen, will you be willing to match the bid? No, I won't. But I strongly advise that the president first answer her secretary's call. Sinroxy frowned deeply. Her secretary hurried to her and whispered something in her ear. Senroxy's face turned pale at that very moment. She remembered clearly. Exactly 10 minutes earlier, the merger of the Gen family in Europe was cancelled immediately due to regulatory violations. Her source of capital had broken down. You were the one who did this, indeed. I only learned of the outcome ahead of time. Frankly, the Zen president. If the Zen family cannot get the money now, I won't be so kind regarding this project at all. I raised my placard and placed a bid, a little below the Zen family's value. The entire room went into an uproar. Not even Roxy looked at me. Your eyes looked as if they were going to burn me alive. Swenjin stood perfectly still behind me, utterly shocked. Perhaps it was the very first time she saw that a battle in the world of business could be so cruel and precise. After the auction ended, I stepped out of the elevator and found Sem Roxy. Leaning against the door of my car, she looked rather pitiable. Her hair, normally immaculate, was a little bit disheveled. She was holding a cigarette in her hand, but she still did not light it. Shannon, just who are you exactly? A 20-year-old boy cannot have a clear vision and a set of methods such as these at all. Who I am doesn't really matter. The important thing is that the president needs a very large sum of money right now, immediately, to cover the hole in Europe. She immediately raised her head to look at me, her eyes full of wary caution. I mentioned in passing, quite casually, her most secret crisis. I walked up to her, I took the cigarette from her hand, and I threw it quickly without ceremony into the trash. The foundations of the family, without engineering, they are very deep. I don't want to fight with you all until death. I want to control all the laboratories, from AI research laboratories in the South. In exchange, I will invest $500 million in capital to help her overcome these very difficulties indeed. You are taking advantage of a serious crisis right now. Exactly. But President Sam must understand clearly that, besides me, no one would dare to invest in you now. Sam Roxy stayed silent for a long, extended moment. She is a very smart and capable person. She knows what matters most between pride and lasting survival. She looked directly at me, intently. A complex, almost overwhelming emotion crossed her eyes. There was hatred, but more than that, an indescribable reverence. Deal's done, but I have one important condition. I want to buy shares in the capital of Dynasta. As agreed, you will only receive the dividends. You will not be able to participate in any of the decisions. I opened the car door and had Swinging come inside. Swinging looked at Sam Roxy, then looked at me again. Her eyes were full of astonishment, wide with wonder. She had long believed that Sam Roxy was an invincible legend, but there, face to face with me, that legend crumbled in less than an hour. That night, the Shanghai boardwalk was incredibly beautiful, almost unreal. I sat at the table with Swinging in front of me. Today she worked extremely hard indeed. She even stayed late, working overtime, proactively helping me to organize the documents from the Zen family's laboratory. She was becoming more and more of an assistant, qualified, not the spoiled young girl she used to be. Shinan, thank you for my father's medical expenses, and for showing me all of this as well. Today, you really don't have to thank me at all. This is the payment for your very careful work, Swingin'. In this world, weakness is the original sin. She didn't say anything else at all. She simply looked at the river in complete silence. I know precisely what she was thinking. She was thinking that 3 years ago, if she had been a little kinder to me, the outcome would, of course, be different now. Deep in my heart, I know it really isn't at all. Securing the Zen family lab today means I already have an entry pass. For the broad field of artificial intelligence, I asked for a bottle of red wine. As for the family, they are the Su family indeed, and then turning the Zen family into a true partner. The events of these past 2 weeks have truly surpassed my last 10 years. Are you going to keep aiming at the Su family in the future? The Su family isn't worthy of being my target. My target is the vast sea of stars. I picked up my glass of wine and took a sip. Su Injin looked at me. Her eyes carried an emotion she had never felt before. But I didn't care anymore. I stood up, adjusted my clothes, and prepared myself to face tomorrow's negotiation. Amadai had barely begun to lay down his own foundations. In the laboratory, hundreds of servers hummed softly. This place had formerly belonged to Zen family, but now it bore the unmistakable mark of Anesti's capital. I watched the data dancing on the bright screen. With complete clarity in my heart, these lines of code are the gold mine. Over the next 10 years, Swingin' slowly stepped forward, approaching with a heavy stack of reports. His movements were faster than they had been just before. Only a faint trace of confusion still shone in his eyes from time to time. Su Shen, Dr. Lin, our chief scientist, wants to see you today as soon as possible. He is now very upset with you at this moment for drastically cutting the budget for traditional research. Traditional? You may proceed to admit him now. Shortly thereafter, a silver-haired gentleman stormed into the room, utterly furious. Xena, by any chance, do you happen to understand anything at all about scientific research? You are wagering all of our funding on neural networks. This is an inescapable dead end. Dr. Lin, in my world there are simply no dead ends. There's only one fastest path. I casually wrote several central methods on the board. These things will not be published for another 13 years. Deep learning algorithms. Dr. Lin's face, which had been furious, froze at that very moment. He stared fixedly at the board. His breath began to come in ragged gasps. How on earth is that truly possible? How did you really manage to arrive at this logic? I am a businessman. I alone care about tangible results. Do exactly what I am telling you, please. In 3 months' time, I want to see concrete results with John Sengui. Dr. Lin looked at me as if I were a monster. Finally, he simply left. He took the formulas without saying another word at all. Suenjin was standing quietly beside me. His eyes shone with genuine admiration. Probably he feels that there is nothing at all that I do not truly know, but I know that this is merely the advantage of anticipation. After solving Case A, I immediately focused on new energy vehicles. In my past life, this industry alone created countless legends worth billions of dollars. Today I came here to obtain the lithium mining license, the most crucial one. The hall was packed with powerful magnates, wealthy and influential. Roxy had also arrived. He had regained his imposing image from before, chatting with several foreign businessmen. See, or Shen, you haven't even finished that matter. And you already want to get into the battery industry? What a grand and audacious ambition indeed. Perhaps he wants to bite off something bigger than he can chew? If we don't try, how will we ever know, Director Shen? By the way, has the Shen family already deeply plugged the hole in Europe? Shenrock's stern expression hardened a little more. Then, as if nothing had happened at all, he raised his wine glass. Now he is my partner, but also my most dangerous and formidable rival. We maintain a carefully balanced, delicate equilibrium between us. Now, we will announce the company that won the rights to priority mining for the Northwest Lithium Mine. It is Inesti's capital city itself. The hall was abuzz tonight. Countless eyes turned toward me, like spotlights. The wine glass in Simroxi's hand trembled ever so slightly. He looked at me with utter disbelief. He had clearly allied himself with 3 other powerful tycoons to corner me, but he never expected that I had already signed indeed, directly, an industrial support agreement with the local government. When you went to the Northwest, my men track your schedule without fail, every single day. Director Sem, tracking my car is useless, still for now. I should track my own heart. I took his engine and stepped onto the stage with large strides before a crowd in the bright lights. Suenjin followed me closely everywhere I went. Today he used an impeccable term, helping me block the journalists who were trying to close in on me. I observed the calculating, shrewd faces beneath the stage area. I had one solitary thought. I laid down this base very firmly, having secured the lithium mine site. I returned to Yongqing to settle the last personal matter. The old Su family house had long since been sealed. Su Sangwu was barred from leaving the country on suspicion of financial crimes. He could only stay confined to the little annex of the old house. I briefly pushed the door, and a fetid stench hit my face. Su Sangwu sat in a wheelchair, his eyes fixed on the window. Are you still coming or not? Did you come to see if I am still alive after all? I came to recover the old things I had given to the engine. I pointed to a rusted metal box there in the corner. Inside were the gifts I, in my distant long-ago life, had saved for 3 long years to buy for your engine. Even though they were utterly worthless, they stood as undeniable proof of my past stupidity. Your engine stood there at the door, stationary and looking at the box. The contour of your eyes was red. Zena, I have always kept these things very close at hand. I didn't throw them away, not at all. Keeping them makes no sense anymore, I think. President Su, as you know, of course, the debt you owed to the bank, I have already paid in your name today. Mr. Su Sangwu suddenly turned his head toward me, clearly. A spark of hope flashed in his eyes, but it faded quickly, alas. He knew I didn't do this out of kindness, but to completely cut off all karma with the Su family once and for all, truly now. From this moment forward, you and the Su group will have no further relation whatsoever. Suenjin will remain employed in the fashion industry. Every single month, I will give him ample funds to ensure you are supported. I abruptly seized a heavy metal box and walked away from the yard. Without turning around, Schwingen followed me to the door, wanting to say something. But in the end, he said nothing. I threw the box into the street's old metal dumpster by the curb and watched the garbage truck carry it away. At that very moment, I felt as if some kind of heavy, cold shackle in my body had broken completely. At 3 in the morning, I was still sitting in the office. In front of me, there were several drafts of smear campaigns that had been urgently intercepted. Although Samui was behind bars, the last remaining forces within the Sam family had not died out completely. allied with a number of individuals who harbored a resentment toward Dynasty, and with independent media, they attempted to spread rumors that the origin of my funds was dubious. President Shen, the legal department sent formal letters from their lawyers, but public opinion continues to ferment. Some say I am involved in illegal fundraising, and that these schemes are meant to harm me with petty, underhanded tricks, such as illegal fundraising of funds. I lit a cigarette and looked out at the quiet streets outside. In my past life, my reputation was also destroyed. Because of this kind of rumor, I even ended up losing my job as these rumors spread. But now I wield a power that is crushing and overwhelming in its force. Please send all of our tax certificates and audit reports to the authorities without delay. At the same time, please contact Mr. Lee immediately. Shinan, you should rest and take it easy for now. You have not slept for 2 full days at all. I saw your expression, worried. An odd feeling stirred within my heart today, but I quickly and firmly suppressed it. I don't need to worry about anything right now. Only loyalty, nothing else. Go rest when you have finished. Tomorrow, the moment the market opens, I want those defamers to go bankrupt completely. The financial circle definitely won't sleep tonight. Not even for a single moment. Not even a blink. I watch the stock market chart like a hungry wolf watching its prey. Those who hide in the shadows, shooting in every possible direction. They don't know what kind of rival they face. I can not only perceive the present, but also every single future move of theirs. The storm in public opinion has cooled down, and the gossip press has gone bankrupt, one by one, until none remained. The market value of Dynasty's capital did not merely fall, it rose by 30%, thanks to Mr. Lee's steadfast support, standing upright on the wide terrace. Behind me, all the prosperity stood in this manner. Sem Roxy stepped toward me in her high heels, holding a new cooperation agreement in her hand. Xena, you honestly don't look like a 20-year-old guy. Sometimes I feel there's an ancient demon living inside your body. Is Director Zen honestly praising me or being sarcastic? She walked toward me and stopped beside me, right there by my side. Looking at the river, shoulder to shoulder, together. The Zen family's southern laboratory is already fully integrated into Dynasty Y technology. Our first-generation AI chip is about to enter mass production. This proves that I will officially go from being a mere speculator to a true industrial magnate. Someone in Sishan is keeping a close watch on you at this moment. The San family can protect you for a little while, but not forever. You need to think carefully about an escape route for yourself. I don't really need an escape route. Every step I take forward is a necessary path to survival. Swingen softly approached with a coat and laid it gently over my shoulders. She has grown quite accustomed to this role, very quiet and completely capable. The once proud former Miss disappeared completely without a trace. I watched the distant lights, understanding in my heart that the true battle of wits was just beginning to unfold. The Jinshan from my past life didn't even have the right to go there at all. In this life, I want the people there to remember my name for all time, always. I turned and went into the office with no Roxy, her face flanking me, following right behind. At that moment, I felt a force like nothing I had ever known. I am no longer that poor boy, in whom they threw 10 million in his face back then. From the plane window, clouds passed by at 10,000 meters of altitude, so high above us. The wings of the plane cut cleanly through the vast sky. Direct route to Incheon. I leaned back in the expansive, comfortable leather armchair. Analyzing Inchan's map of powerful players, provided by Sem Roxy, Yurinjin sat in the chair beside me, carefully and meticulously reviewing the itinerary for after the landing. Your current professional level is fully capable of handling it. Xiaoshen, a top secretary with outstanding competence, has already arranged the airport pickup service. But Jin Shan, the Jin family's young master, sent a note to convey his invitation. At this evening's charity banquet, he hopes you, esteemed guest, can attend promptly and be present. The Ji family, a renowned clan, that Ji family, which in my past life controlled half of Jin's electronics sector, Chan 2 years later. The Ji family would collapse under the breakdown of its capital chain, but now they remain a towering, untouchable giant, the young master of the Ji family. Ji inviting me at this very moment is, obviously, a clear demonstration of strength against a mere outsider like me. Miss Zen clearly reminded me of the Ji family's dirty games. We really ought to refuse. Why should we refuse, after all? They have already prepared the stage. If I fail to appear, how in the world will the show go on? The airplane landed very softly at the bustling capital airport. I stepped down from the cabin. The dry, cold air struck my face. It wasn't neither the warm-hearted Yunkin nor the prosperous Modu, but rather the deep center of power. I adjusted the collar of my suit. In my past life, I was only a delivery man in this city. In this life, I want this city to bow to me. The car moved steadily toward the center of the city. Observing the red walls and the green tiles passing through the window, my heart was strangely calm indeed. Whether it was truly the Gill family or Jinshan's circle of power facing someone with 10 years' memories, they are only remnants of an ancient era. The club. In front of the entrance, luxury cars crowded together like soft, drifting clouds. A Shusen receptionist escorted me inside promptly. As I stepped into the grand hall, all conversations fell utterly silent at once. Countless inquisitive looks were cast upon me from every corner of the room. The young master Gifang stood amid the crowd, twirling a wine goblet in his hand. His eyes bore an arrogance that ran to the marrow, so very deep. So this is Shenan, the man who has caused such a stir in Modu. He doesn't seem like much at all, really. A wave of loud laughter rose up from the crowded audience. Suan-jin was standing directly behind me. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did so quite quickly. She slowly regulated her breathing and stayed calm and steady. I ignored Aoife's taunt and went straight to sit down on a nearby well-cushioned sofa. Young Master G, truly. 3 heads and 6 arms in total. That is a monster. I'm just an ordinary person. Ordinary, who happens to like making money. Make money? Money in Shiksa isn't that easy to earn, you know. I heard you want a slice of the chip pie. Electronics? I strongly advise that you go back to the place you came from. Otherwise, you will lose everything. Even your very last pair of underwear. He abruptly, forcefully slammed his wine glass down on the table right before me. The liquid splashed all across the smooth surface. That kind of cheap, petty humiliation I have witnessed countless times in my past life. I calmly asked for a clean napkin to wipe my hands, and I fixed my gaze steadily on him. Young Master G, instead of worrying about my underwear, you ought to be worried. A brief look into the G family's shipments of raw materials that are still currently held up in Southeast Asia. If I am not mistaken, this indeed is G family's lifeline this year. Is that so? G Fan's expression changed instantly. That matter had been strictly concealed by the G family. It was impossible for anyone outside to know. He stared at me, his eyes revealing for the first time a stark, chilling look of horror. The party was wonderfully festive, but I did not care for the wine of young Master G. I left calmly, under everyone's astonished gaze, softly. Swinji followed me to the front door, his eyes full of utter disbelief as he watched me, probably wondering how many other cards I still had up my sleeve to use. Back at the hotel, I gave the very first order immediately right now. I know precisely where the family's current Achilles heel lies. G. In my past life, the family's complete collapse. G began with an internal leak, and the person who leaked the information, now he's in grave gambling debt, and is being brutally beaten by G-Fan tonight. Go to the clandestine casino in the city's southern district. Find a man named Lao Gu and bring him here. I will pay his debts double. Su Ying took notes quickly beside me. She was already used to it, with my reckless style of making decisions. She no longer asked why. She was only responsible for carrying out the job. Perfectly. Exactly 1 hour later, Lao Gu was brought to me. Mr. Shen, please save me. G-Fan is going to kill me very soon. He can't possibly kill you. Please give me the real data from the G family's own electronic ledgers. I will send you overseas. Lao hesitated for less than 3 seconds before eventually agreeing. In the very face of life and death, loyalty isn't worth a single cent. After obtaining the data, as you can imagine, I didn't rush to make them public, not yet. Instead, I called Simroxy directly. You move far too quickly these days. The family. Gimal made a move, and you already got them. Through the weak point. Director, without delay, prepare the capital tomorrow as soon as the market opens. We will acquire the entire main industry of the G family. I hung up the phone and walked to the window. The night view of Jinshan is beautiful, but it's also filled with murderous intent. I know that the day after tomorrow, the G family will be history soon, and Ineza's capital name will shake you to your very core. Jinshan, please go rest now. Tomorrow we will surely need a lot of energy for the harvest. Su Jin nodded in assent. She looked at my back, and a deep adoration rose in her eyes. I knew that now she was completely surrendered to me. The stock market had barely opened half an hour earlier this morning, and the family's 3 publicly traded companies, G, had already plunged down to the strict lower limit. The magnates and the very rich of Jinshan, they were merely watching from their own private box seats. They could no longer stay completely still. They looked intently at the red numbers, flickering across the huge, bright screens, with clear terror stamped plainly on their faces. What happened? The G family is being toppled maliciously. Who would have so much courage? I was quietly sitting in the room, a VIP at the operating table, with several computers all lined up before me. Semrox was sitting just at my side, carrying out orders quite quickly. Each move hit exactly the family's weak point. G, like a surgical procedure. Sheenan, the data you provided are truly incredible. The G family's entire capital chain is broken. There is no salvation left. Those are just the interests, truly. Yesterday, Ifan said I wasn't worthy of ever making money. I have to clearly show him how you lose money. Right at that moment, Ethan flung open the door to the operating room. Your eyes were bloodshot, red with blood, the crooked tie skewed to one side. The courage from the previous night had completely disappeared. He stepped up to me, wanting to grab me by the collar, perhaps in anger, but the security guards promptly pinned him to the ground. Xena, you lunatic, truly. You are digging your own grave, right here. The circle of power of Jinxia will not forgive you, ever. Young Master G, the circle of power follows only the strong, feared, and ruthless. To them, you have no value left to be exploited at all. I signaled the guards to take him away at once. Suin stood to one side, watching the formerly powerful one. Ifan was dragged away like a dead dog. She sighed softly, barely audible. This scene reminded her of the old Su family from long ago, truly. Stop sighing. Notify the finance department to begin seizing the G family's main assets now. I left the operating room and walked out. The sun was a little blinding. I know the G family's collapse is only the beginning. I have completely stirred Jinshan's waters, unsettled their depths. On the 7th day after the G family's collapse, Jinshan's branch in Inesti's capital was officially established at the opening ceremony. For a moment, the magnates of Jinshan, who previously looked down on me with disdain, are now all smiling, lining up to hand me their business cards. Profit is the sole passport in this circle of power and prestige. Your Shen is so young and incredibly talented. I hope you will take care of us from now on in Jinshan. Certainly, we will grow richer together. I calmly and firmly dealt with that false flattery without letting it shake me at all. Suin Diden wore an elegant, sharply tailored black formal suit, moving gracefully and deftly among the guests, always helping me handle these superficial social interactions. He had already fully adapted to this high-intensity life. CEO Shen, congratulations. Now everyone in Zishan truly knows you. Shinan is the real deal, the Midas touch. The director, who also earned quite a bit, didn't he, I suppose? If it hadn't been for your capital backing, I wouldn't have been able to acquire the family this quickly at all. Roxy smiled warmly. Her eyes showed a new, deeper depth they'd never had before, really. We are no longer just partners. We are, in fact, a community with shared interests. I slowly gazed at the restless, frenzied crowd gathered below the stage, and suddenly, I remembered the day I was reborn. That $10 million check from that era now seems so utterly ridiculous. Susvang, can you truly see it? Back then, you expected to purchase my future with money alone. In the end, you let me buy all the hopes of everything for us all. Enshan. The ceremony has just ended. Standing at the very top of the stairs, looking at all Enshan's bright lights. I know my business empire is truly taking shape, but this is only the foundation. In the near future, I will build a global commercial empire, belonging to Shenyang. Yes, or Shen, the flight is scheduled for tomorrow morning. For Moa, it is already reserved then. Very well, the forthcoming destination awaits us. We shall recover the last piece that rightfully belongs to me. I turned toward the table. The setting sun shed its warm light across my back, casting a long, deep shadow behind me. In this life, I will finally ascend to the throne. Outside the windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, the Vampu River flowed on without stopping. Returning from Jinshan with no rest at all, I immediately began to organize the plan for the global marketplace. Sunjin stood behind me, deftly and meticulously organizing the contract documents. Transboundary indeed. The arrogance of the young lady had quietly vanished from her eyes, replaced by a calm, unwavering serenity forged in adversity. Xi or Shen, the giants of North American technology, cannot stay still at all. They sent a jointly authored letter expressing their intent to purchase our principal artificial intelligence algorithm. Buying? They are indeed, fearful of falling completely behind. Tell them that technology, or the chow, does not originate from technology. We only sell products. I leaned back in the genuine leather armchair, looking at a panorama on the wall. In my past life, long ago, those enormous giants, they used technological barriers to suppress us for 10 full years. In this life, I will clearly show them what it means to completely turn the game around. And one more thing. My father was discharged from the hospital today at last. He wants to personally prepare a fine meal for you, sir, before he returns to his hometown again. There is no need whatsoever. Miss Sue, I have already told you. Between us, there exists nothing but labor. Please kindly procure for him a retirement apartment in Junquim. The funds shall be drawn from my personal account. Sue Injin's movements grew stiff and rigid. She lowered her head, her voice somewhat choked. I know you have not yet resigned, but the door to my heart has closed since the day I was reborn. Please return to your work at once now. This afternoon's meeting with Sandroxy is very important indeed. Do not let any mistakes happen, please, now. She took a deep breath, calmly wiped the corner of her eyes, and regained her professional posture. I watched her withdraw carefully now. To me, it was so perfectly clear. In this life, I am no longer anyone's accessory. I am the owner of this intricate chess game now. After finishing my shift, I walked alone to the dock under a cold night wind. The night wind was excruciatingly cold, sweeping away much of my drunkenness. Svingen ran after me, quickly bringing me a warm coat, and then looking me over. His eyes bore an emotion that had long lain repressed, as if it could erupt at any moment. Zena, if back then I hadn't accepted that check, if you were still the same poor boy you used to be, even if only just a little bit, would you still love me the way you did back then? I stopped and slowly turned around to look at her. The lights along the dock. They projected a soft, gentle glow across her face, the kind that seemed to linger in the air around us. I asked myself this same question countless times throughout my past life. But in this life, it was indeed her turn to ask. Svingen, the cheapest thing in the world is a deep love that arrives far too late. I know I was wrong, and I truly regret it. In the last 6 months, I have watched you steadily reach the very top, step by step, and it was only then that I realized I had lost the world's most precious treasure. You regretted it, because now I am on top. If you still saw me as nothing more than a mere speck of dust, I carry an umbrella for you in the rain. You would only find me irritating. I didn't wear a coat, I let it fall to the ground. I looked at the river, feeling an endless freedom in my heart. Miss Sue, the task I entrusted to you was given in recognition of your hard work during these ongoing days. If you wish to speak of personal feelings, you may submit your letter of resignation tomorrow. Svingen collapsed onto the bench. She covered her face and cried softly in silence. I did not look back. I walked toward the car parked at the edge of the street. At that very moment, the submissive dog from earlier was completely separated from me. On the night just before the global launch, Sandrox suddenly appeared from nowhere in my office. With her legal team beside her, she held a contract firmly in her hand. Her eyes showed a notable, unpredictable seriousness. I knew that this woman was finally, at last, showing her claws. Zena, there are families who want to invest more funds. We want to obtain 40% of the shares of Wanchao Technology, please. The President Zen is currently attempting a hostile takeover. Zen Roshi moved slowly closer and placed both hands on my desk. Her presence was profoundly intimidating. Behind her stood the entire Shinshan family. The family, yes, clearly, was not satisfied with being merely a partner. They wanted to control this future, the vast empire of artificial intelligence. This is the will of the ancient Zen family elder. If you do not accept, then all Zen family laboratories and supply chains in the South will stop operating tomorrow. President Zen, do you think that just because I dared let you become a shareholder, I wouldn't have a plan B at all? I opened my computer and showed a diagram of the structure that had been hidden. Sam Rock peered at the screen for a moment now. His face turned slowly from pale to a very vivid green. She discovered that the keys to all the algorithms, the central servers, were scattered across the servers I had previously acquired in the old, sprawling industrial district. President Zen, if the Zen family wants to withdraw its investment, go right ahead at once. But without me, Those Zen family laboratories are nothing more than a mere pile of junk. Zen Roxy looked at me quite intently. After a long moment, suddenly, she let out a light, somewhat self-deprecating laugh, softly. She withdrew the agreement and elegantly, with poise, gracefully fixed her hair. Xena, you are really a lunatic. It seems all I have left is to be your obedient partner. A smart choice. A pleasure to work with you, President Zen. I watched her retreat, and I wiped away the cold sweat. It was an enormous challenge, but I prevailed. For I understand not only the trends of the future, but also the greed of the human heart. The stage lights focused intently on the center, still. Swenjin stood quietly backstage. Clenching my fists nervously, I straightened my tie slightly. Amid the thunderous applause, the crowd roared. I walked slowly to the podium, pausing briefly. Today, we will clearly and boldly define the future. When I pressed the control key, the Cal Technologies' first-generation General Artificial Intelligence system was officially started today. At that very precise moment, the entire conference stood utterly still. Then, a great, piercing cry arose that shook the skies above. I learned that, from that moment onward, the name Xenon is destined to be written in history books for generations to come. My God, this is technology 20 years ahead of its time. I looked out over the fervent faces below the stage, and my heart trembled ever so slightly. In my past life, when I died on that dark deck, no one knew who I truly was. But now the whole world must hear my voice, and the world will listen at last. President Shen, we did it. This is only the beginning. Assistant Su, notify the legal department. So that the legal department prepares a preliminary draft of global business standards, President Zen approached me and hugged me warmly and closely. She whispered in my ear that the Zen family was completely convinced. I gently opened the doors to the auditorium. Outside, the night sky was brimming with stars, and the bright lights of the cameras shone around me. In that moment, I finally found myself standing there at the very top. Not for love, not for glory, but for this priceless view from the summit, a view that makes all the other mountains seem utterly small. I refused every interview offered and climbed the terrace alone. The wind was fierce, tossing my hair about, yet it sharpened my senses and made me feel more lucid than ever before. Finally, I truly understood the most important meaning of the Renaissance. It wasn't hatred at all. It was giving me the real power to choose my own destiny. A year later, I returned once more to Yunkin. Nothing had changed much around here, except that the Sweezel families had long since become the subject of gossip. Occasional gossip, dressed entirely in deep black. I was holding a bouquet of wild white chrysanthemums. I was standing there in front of an unnamed grave. It was my burial place in my past life. In this life, I lived for you, and I also avenged you. Now, you may rest in peace. I placed the bouquet. I turned around and saw Swinjin standing not far away. She had already resigned. Now she was an educator at an elementary school in Yunkin. She seemed much calmer than before. Her eyes carried no more weight or burden at all. The greed and arrogance of the past were left behind. Swoshin, how long has it been since you and I last met? How long, Professor Su? We exchanged a few words, simply as mutual friends might. Then, each one followed his own separate path. No fanfare, no emotion at all. Only the serene stillness of a dream from which you woke, untouched by any noise. Then, the phone rang suddenly. It was Sam Roxy, telling me that the market value of the capital, Ancal, had surpassed $1 trillion. Grand Chief Shen, where exactly do you intend to go now? To a place where no one knows me. Sleep well tonight. I switched off the phone and I wiped it out. The sun glittered on the surface of the sea, shining between the waves. I pulled the check from my pocket, the yellowed $10 million check that I had always kept close at hand. I tore it up softly, and the pieces slowly dissolved in the sea, with the wind, for love, for glory. In this life, I lived fully. I walked up to the sleek sports car parked along the street. I started the engine and disappeared at the end of the road, not looking back at all. The legend of Shenhan continues.